Hello, everyone, and welcome to this afternoon's webinar, part 2 of today's celebration of champion sports. If you missed out on the first webinar this morning, it'll be on the Life Changes Trust website in a few days, so look out for that. It's well worth a watch and a hard act to follow, but we'll do our best. My name's Celeste Berteau. I'm an Evidence and Influencing Coordinator with the Young People with Care Experience program here at the Life Changes Trust, and I'm thrilled to be your chair for today. So today and for the next few days, we're focusing on champion sports, celebrating everything that they've achieved so far. Our investment in the Champions Board was built on the goal of supporting young people with care experience to come together and work alongside those who make key decisions about the care system. Our vision was for a cultural shift where corporate parents build genuine and trusting relationships with the young people that are or who have been in their care. Champs boards take a unique approach, enabling young people to hold heads of service, elected officials, and other professionals accountable for the level of care young people receive from their corporate parents. But as you'll see later in this session, they also, and perhaps more importantly, engender genuine, supportive, and loving relationships. Corporate parents get to know young people with care experience as individuals with unique needs and aspirations. This knowledge and these relationships create the foundation upon which meaningful, transformational change can be built. This afternoon, we're going to be looking more specifically at the impact and learning from the evaluation of our Champions Board approach, which was carried out by Research Scotland. Katy MacMillan and Nadia Hyder will be talking us through today's proceedings, and they'll give you an overview in just a second. First, I want to take a moment to express our gratitude for all the ways that they ensured young people's voices stayed at the center of this work, from training up and working with peer researchers, two of whom you'll meet later, to small but important methodological practices, like analyzing the interviews of young people first, before looking at any comments or information from professionals and partners. We hope that you'll agree these approaches made this piece of work particularly impactful. Later in the webinar, we'll be having a Q&A panel session where you'll be able to ask any questions of Katy and Nadia, as well as the two peer researchers, Anisha, Tagore, and Shawn O'Donnell, and also Mhairi Reid, my colleague here at the Trust. If you would like to ask a question of the panel, you can put your questions in the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen. Don't feel like you have to hold them in until the end. You can pop them in there just as you think of them throughout the session. There's also a chat section, and you can use this if you have any general comments. You will see in this chat function that there's a drop-down menu. This gives you the option to share your comments with just the panel or with everyone. It's always nice to share, so please remember to select the with everyone option so everyone can hear your thoughts and comments. So speaking of sharing, this webinar is also being recorded and will be on the Life Changes Trust website in a few days. So you can share it with anyone who missed it or anyone you think could particularly benefit from hearing some of these messages. We'll email everyone when this is available. So, as you know, we've just published an independent evaluation of the Champions Board approach, and that report looks at, among other things, the extent to which Champions Boards have been creating positive change for young people with care experience, empowering them and supporting them to be part of the decision-making process in matters that affect their own lives. To talk more about this, as well as the key evidence, impact, and learning from the evaluation, I'm going to ask Nadia and Katy to join me on screen now. Hello.
Hello.
Welcome
Hi.
to both of you. Thanks for doing this session with us this afternoon. And I'm just going to let you take it from here. Thanks again.
That's perfect. Thanks very much, Celeste. Hi, I'm Katy and I'm from Research Scotland. I'm here today with my colleague Nadia, and we're really excited to be here talking about our findings of the evaluation of the Champions Board approach. Importantly, I'm here today with Anisha and Shawn, who are two of our peer evaluators. They were a really important part of our team for the evaluation, and you'll get the chance to hear more from Anisha and Shawn during the Q&A session later. So feel free to pop some questions in the chat for them. This is intended to be an interactive session where we'll present findings, we'll chat through the Q&A, and we'll also play a number of films as well. So please do make sure that you put any questions, thoughts or comments into the chat and Q&A, and we'll make sure we respond to these. The first thing we'd like to do this afternoon is to say a little bit about our evaluation, what we did, and a little bit about how a Champions Board feels. So I'm going to pass over to Nadia to say a bit about that.
Thanks, Katie. So we're going to start off by telling you a little bit about our evaluation. So we started this work in February 2020, and from the outset, we were really excited about it, both the context of the work and the scale of it. We had big plans to travel across Scotland, meeting people from each of the 21 Champions Boards. But as you remember, from March that year, the pandemic changed absolutely everything about what we could do, how we could involve people in the research, and also how the Champions Boards worked and how they supported and worked with young people. So like everyone else, we had to change our method a bit. And despite all the challenges faced by the boards, we were still able to speak with over 200 people for this evaluation. 67 of those were young people who were involved in the Champions Boards. 96 were partners, people like corporate parents and people who would support the Champions Board. And 44 of them were staff members, the people who were involved in the day-to-day running of a Champions Board. We just want to say that we really, really appreciate the time that each and every one of you gave to this research. We absolutely couldn't have done any of it without you. Like Celeste mentioned before, this evaluation was really focused on young people and putting them right at the heart of everything that we do. One of the ways we did this was by involving young people as peer researchers or peer evaluators. We switched between the two terms interchangeably. We worked with 11 young people across this evaluation period, and they really helped us to design and deliver the evaluation, from the discussion guides that we used to helping conduct the actual interviews, all the way through to designing the report that you'll be able to see published today. And when it came to writing the report, we chose to analyze their views first. So we used the key themes from the interviews that we'd done with young people to shape and structure the rest of the report, again, really putting them at the heart of all of this work. And so again, I want to thank all the young people who worked with us as peer researchers and those who gave their time to speak with us about their experiences, because the strength of our findings is absolutely based on your views. One of the things that I got to ask people as part of this research was how it feels to be part of a Champions Board. So we asked every single person this question, and it was probably the most interesting question that I got to ask people because they gave me such thoughtful and really honest answers. Young people were really positive about all of this. The language they used was extremely positive, as you can see there, saying that it really felt like a family, that they had this sense of belonging, that it was just fun to be in a Champions Board, and it was a place that made them feel happy and special. And for partners, whilst it was still really, really a positive experience, they also shared that sometimes being part of a board was challenging or it made them feel a bit nervous. So we identified a few key factors that really helped Champions Boards to achieve that sense of family and belonging. First of all, the relationships. Young people developed really strong relationships with each other, with corporate parents, and also with the staff who were running these Champions Boards, and they were really central to making everything work. Another thing that really helped was that people could get involved in Champions Boards in lots of different ways. I saw lots of clever, creative, and fun ways that people could just get involved and be part of it. And the space, the atmosphere that was created by Champions Boards was very welcoming and was very much tailored to what would make a young person feel comfortable in that space, what would make them feel safe and would make them want to open up and share their views and experiences. And lastly, but certainly not least, the staff running the Champions Boards provided so much structure and support for young people. Often they were someone that the young people could come to and turn to if they had any questions about anything, almost like a first port of call or a one-stop shop for things. And that, again, really helped to engage young people and make them feel they were really supported in what they wanted to do with the Champions Board. And whilst there were lots and lots of things that were good, it was clear that a lot of effort was required to make a Champions Board work really well. And we also identified these key factors that people had to think really carefully about to kind of optimize the Champions Board experience for everyone. So with regards to young people, it was really important to think about who was coming along to the board, to make sure that there was a good mix of young people with different experiences, and to make sure that the board wasn't always being led by a small group of people who were bearing kind of the most of the responsibility for this. So we saw that staff worked really hard to encourage new young people to join the board, to keep it fresh with new ideas, and to make sure that people stayed with the board for as long as they could contribute. And then once young people were engaging with the board, it was really important to consider the balance of the activity there. So most people really enjoyed taking part in social activities, and these were a crucial element of the boards. But there was also work required to kind of move that activity on from having fun to engaging in activities that would really help to then make a difference. And once young people were really engaged in directly policy kind of practice work and influencing things, staff worked really carefully to make sure that they could give their opinions for those issues without the need to share intimate details of their personal lives and experiences. And that was really important to protect the young people through the experience. It was clear also that there was a lot of effort involved in making sure that everyone recognized and valued the time that's needed to invest in those relationships, and that the process of socializing and getting to know each other is actually really valuable. And it's what ultimately builds confidence and trust, which then allows change to happen. And as I mentioned before, for some corporate parents, being part of a champions board was challenging because it was new and it was different. And some felt kind of nervous about their own ability to engage with young people with care experience. So there was definitely work to be done around building their knowledge, their skills, and their confidence so that they could fully engage in the champions board process. Next, we're going to say a little bit about the significant impact of champions boards on young people. We want to start by hearing the voices of young people, though, and our fantastic peer evaluators identified some of the best quotes from our interviews with young people and recorded these in their own voices so we can hear about the difference that the boards are making.
I feel like I get listened to more, taken seriously. I feel like my opinion is worth listening to.
I am very proud of the work that I do. It makes me feel really, really good. It makes me feel accomplished.
At the Champions Board, I've learned quite a lot about care because I wasn't even aware that I was care experienced. I've learned a lot about language of care, that how it can be quite damaging for people and things like that, and we're doing a lot of work on that right now. And I learned about the promise, which we've been looking into quite a bit as well. I've grown a lot in personality and confidence, and I try new things a lot more than I used to. I'm gonna hopefully get into uni, study there and then find a job that I really like, but I'd like to continue working with the Champions Board to make changes that we can affect.
We're actually listened to and not just seen as the stereotypes. We're not just the stuff that's happened to us. Being care experienced is just a small part of us.
We got the chance to interview social workers who were applying for the job. It was a wee bit scary for me, but it was good getting to know people. It has made me feel that people trust me, and that helps a lot.
People are more aware, more engaged, more willing to learn and go in with an open mind.
I feel like we're just a great collective. It feels like a family.
We can't change what's happened to us, but if we can make a small change for others, maybe that's good enough.
When I was a child, being care experienced was something to be hidden away, and now it's something to be proud of.
Thank you so much to our fabulous team of peer evaluators for their voices on that film. There's some really interesting discussion happening in the chat about getting comfortable with being uncomfortable and bringing about change. And I really hope to come back to that within the Q&A. So remember to pop any questions that you have into that section and we'll make sure and pick them up later. From this video and from the clips from the peer evaluators, we can really hear that being involved in the Champions Boards has just had such an impact on individual young people. First of all, on relationships. I mean, as Nadia said, and as we've been talking about all day this morning and this afternoon, relationships have been so important as part of the Champions Boards. Young people develop their relationships with other young people, and they also develop their relationships with adults. They connected, they felt like a family, and really felt like Champions Boards were a special place. And we really began to see that ripple effect as young people became comfortable and more trusting with adults. They went about seeking advice and support as they needed it. We also really saw a change in the confidence of many young people involved in Champions Boards. Young people were beginning to try new things, getting confident with that, sharing ideas, building their self-esteem, and becoming much more positive about themselves. We saw a big change in terms of aspirations and goals. Most of the young people that we spoke to through this evaluation said that they now feel that they can achieve their goals. Through Champions Boards, young people were seeing a wide range of different employment and learning opportunities, seeing possibilities that should be available to them, gaining employment opportunities through the Champions Boards, and all of this really made a big impact on the aspirations of young people. Just to say a wee bit about leadership, we found it was really interesting that lots of young people were feeling that they might be leaders, they could be leaders, they were role models, they were changing their behaviour and adapting and supporting younger people who were involved in Champions Boards. But some of them were still a little bit hesitant to describe themselves as a leader, even though they might be acting like one already. And then finally on health, just worth a mention, particularly in the context of lockdown and the pandemic, we found that a lot of young people mentioned the Champions Boards as being so important in terms of maintaining their mental health during lockdown, keeping those connections there, that supportive network that Nadia was talking about, just making sure that they didn't feel too isolated and had access to support when they needed. Just to go on to talk a little bit about the impact on policy, practice and systems change. Our report is relatively lengthy, there's plenty of summaries, but there are lots and lots of examples within our report of changes to policy and practice that came about because of the young people involved in Champions Boards. Most of the young people that we spoke to through this evaluation really felt able to bring about change. Young people we spoke to mainly said that they'd either made a change to policy or practice, or they were working meaningfully on something which would bring about a change in the future. We found that Champions Boards really had a key role in taking national priorities and implementing these locally in line with young people's priorities and their views and what's important to them. We had lots and lots of different examples in really important areas. So we found, for example, in housing, that Champions Boards supported the availability of more housing options for young people with care experience so that they don't need to present as homeless and they are able to access an option which suits them at their stage. We saw examples of Champions Boards and young people working to keep brothers and sisters together and making sure that corporate parents made pledges, set targets and developed policies around this. And we saw examples of Champions Boards resulting in enhanced mental health support in schools, the introduction of virtual head teachers, and the use of attainment funding in line with young people's views in that area. There are many, many examples, and I can't get into the detail of all of them at the moment, but there are lots of examples within our report. I think what's important to say about these changes to policy and practice, though, are that they were not one-off. So young people through their Champions Boards were getting involved in decision-making structures. They were getting involved in the development of big policies like corporate parenting plans. And Champions Boards were really becoming a key place where people can listen to young people. So where changes happened, it was embedded within the culture of organisations. And we saw that through speaking to the corporate parents. In our discussions with corporate parents, people were talking about real change happening in terms of the way that they work. Champions Boards were leading to a better understanding of care experience in corporate parenting. Organisations and staff were beginning to understand how to listen better and listen earlier to young people. And really importantly, people were seeing how their decisions actually impact on people's lives in real life. And that gave them the confidence to think differently about their policy and practice, to challenge situations, and to feel a moral as well as a statutory duty to corporate parenting, wanting to do the right thing for the young people that they are working with. People emphasised that this was absolutely within the wider context of the promise and a really strong focus on children's rights, which helped to give partners permission to really listen to children and young people through the Champions boards. Again, people talked a lot about this through our evaluation, but we think that the best way to understand the real difference that Champions boards have made on how organisations work is through hearing from corporate parents directly. 3 corporate parents gave up their time to talk to Mhairi from the Life Changes Trust in detail about the impact of the Champions Board on their work for this session. So with big thanks to Mark from South Ayrshire, Alison from Dundee, and Lindsay from East Lothian, let's hear from them now.
So I'm just going to start by asking you a wee question about what your role is and also how you got involved with your Champions Board.
Yeah, no, thanks, Mhairi. So I'm Mark Inglis. I'm the Head of Service for Children's Healthcare and Justice within South Ayrshire Health and Social Care Partnership. And obviously that covers a role of all social work services for children and health visiting, as well as all the justice teams in our residential houses, etc. Yeah, I mean, I've only been in South Ayrshire 2 and a bit years. 18 months I've been based in this little part of my living room, like everyone else working from home. And I was introduced quite early on to the Champions Board, who were really making a lot of inroads into just challenging. It was language, really, was my first experience, was just challenging the language and actually kind of raising the issues of what it is to be a care experienced young person, and how do the wider corporate family connect with those who have got care experience, and how do we make sure that we're doing all that we can to support, but just be mindful of the fact that young people with care experience, that their roots into are different, and that they've got different skills and gifts, etc. So I was really challenged early on with I suppose just their energy, their fun, their youthfulness, and again, some of that was on a pretty large stage. You know, at that point it was in our county buildings, which is in Ayr at Wellington Square, and you know, we maybe had about 120 people there, and they were saying some really punchy things, you know, with fun and kindly, but some big things about how the system does not always support children who have got care experience, and how some of our language can be very stigmatising.
So I'm a senior service manager with the Children and Families Service in Dundee. So I manage all the social work locality teams in Dundee. We've just recently had a kind of management restructure. So my role is fairly new, although I've been in social work for a long time and been in senior management probably for about 6 years or so now. I've just always attended the Champions Board in that role. I hadn't attended the Champions Board previously, although did have some awareness of the Champions Board, but I was asked to attend and pretty much have done so ever since.
I'm a group service manager for children's services in East Lothian Council. And what that means is that I manage children's social work. I've been involved in the Champions Board since my previous post, which is a bit narrower than the one I've got at the moment. And I initially was supporting my previous boss, who was the ambassador for our Champions Board for the priority of keeping loved ones together. Okay. And when my boss retired, I took on that position as ambassador. It felt like quite a big moment in my promotion in the Champions Board to become an ambassador for keeping loved ones together. So I have been that ambassador for about 3 years now, and have been quite a regular part of our Champions Board, attending all the regular meetings and events that are put on. So yeah, that's who I am and how I'm involved in the Champions Board.
What sort of stuff have you done with them? You mentioned the big event there at Wellington Square. What sort of other things do you do with the Champions Board?
So yeah, we've done inputs to the kind of wider corporate family as well. So again, we've had other sessions where we've brought those from education, employment training, housing together. Again, larger groups, and we've worked together in kind of workshops, just looking at what are some of the issues. How can we work together as a corporate family to actually support our children and young people who've got care experience? The implementation of the promise, and just working together to kind of deliver on the vision and how we're going to implement the promise. So, we've done some really interesting sessions with our community planning partnership, which is a very high-level group. It's, as you know, a range of very senior people across NHS, police, fire and rescue, third sector, etc., etc. And so we've done a couple of sessions with them, a couple of sessions with our elected members, head teachers, our own social work team leaders and senior management. But when you get young people talking about their own actual experience with those who are very senior leaders, in the most part, it changes the atmosphere in the room really significantly. I think people connect on an emotional level with what the agenda is in a way that you maybe don't get with other agendas that are talked about with in some of these high level meetings. And I found that quite humbling and also quite challenging. But I think it's been brilliant.
It's really varied. So the meetings are very well arranged, and they're a really nice balance of kind of icebreakers and getting to know you activities where we try and break down those barriers between, the agencies and the professionals that come along and the young people that take part. So we do a lot of icebreaking activity and fun activities like that to get to know each other. But we also do a lot of priority setting, a lot of discussions about specific topics that are really important to the champs. They'll often request certain sessions about certain topics, or equally, we might have a request of the champ. So I might need specific feedback about something, about an idea or a suggestion or a development, and I would maybe say, is it okay if I come along and speak to you about this proposal and get your views and what you think? So it's a mixture of really hearing about how the young people are, really taking an interest in their lives and what they're bringing to the group that night, but also mixed with that real focus on improving services and getting the champ's voice in that development ground. And that's led by both parties.
I think fun, games, honesty, conversations, food, all connects us as people, all connects us as human beings. And I think you can have a really rich conversations when that's present, a bit of fun, a bit of mick taking, a bit of banter, all that stuff I think really helps just connect us with who we are as people, and then I think it makes for better decision making round about some of the policy stuff that I think we're on to in terms of the promise, but it's also quite hard work because it's challenging a whole system that's been around for a long time.
The best feeling is always when you manage to make something happen that's been a direct request. That feels really good. So you've got a very clear, question and an answer. Why does this happen? Why can't it happen this way? You take that on board, you do the work required, and you can go back to the champs and say, this is the change that's happened. So if you get that, that feels like a real win for everybody. And that's the best feeling. I guess the most challenging thing is when you can't do that for whatever reason, be it resources, legislation, whatever barriers are in the way. If you're unable to meet a demand or a priority or a request, and having those difficult conversations about why, because really one of the biggest skills of our Champions Board is how much they hold us to account. Mm-hmm. And rightly so, they're well able to say, why do you do it like this? Why have you not considered it this way? This makes much more sense to us as young people. What are you going to do about it? And then it's over to us to try and, take that forward and really try and explore our policies and procedures and really try and be much more accountable to that voice of the child and the experienced young person. But it's not always possible, and that feels really frustrating and really challenging. So yeah, I much prefer when I'm able to say, because of you and because of this priority, this is now what's in place.
Well, I can only speak for myself and my organisation. I would say yes, it's a very important role. It's something that as an organisation we prioritise from our chief exec right down. It's an important area of work for us, and there's a real buy-in there. In terms of it's through the Champions Board in Dundee, for example. We were able to, colleagues were able to negotiate a council tax, what's the word? It's not a refund, but
Exemption.
Negotiate terms, extension for our care leavers. Matters like laptops in our children's houses that came through the Champions Board, and these aren't things that were held to account in Champions Board, because I've had experience of the naughty and nice step at the Champions Board. I think that was a Christmas Champions Board, and it was obviously the panto kind of season, and we were on the naughty and nice step, and my colleague was on the naughty step, and I really felt his pain. But we'd made commitments, we hadn't been able to follow through. There was consequences for us.
I genuinely think that one of the most impactful groups, certainly within my locality, and certainly some of the other work that I've seen through staff, etc., other groups where you actually see other Champions Boards talking about what they're doing, because I think it's so grounded in the experience and the reality of those who have come through care themselves. I think there's such an authenticity about it. There's something really human about it. So I genuinely think that there's the Champions Boards have had a huge significant impact in terms of where we are locally, but I would also say nationally as well, and the conversations that we're having just now.
Yeah, I think Champions Boards are absolutely crucial. I think my vision would be that they're a mainstream provision in every single local authority, and not something that we have to fight or struggle to fund. I think they are such a pivotal part of what we do. I mean, I'm lucky enough that I've not practiced in East Lothian without a Champions Board, and it actually makes me feel a bit anxious to think about what if we didn't have a Champions Board, because they're just so crucial for everything that we do. So I think they're hugely important. I think they absolutely embody the promise and what that sets out to achieve with voice. There couldn't be a greater voice in East Lothian for care experienced young people than our Champions Board, and we're so hugely proud of that. But take no credit for it. That is absolutely what they have created.
Just finally then, so would you say your involvement in a Champions Board has had an impact on you personally and or professionally then?
Oh yeah, yes, I do. I do think it has had an impact on me, because in the role that I'm in now, I'm not out and about meeting families in their homes or working directly with children, and it would be very easy to get very separated from that role. So, any opportunity, including the Champions Board, for me to engage on a personal level, it just makes you accountable. It creates an accountability, makes you personally connected to the young people in a way that I maybe wouldn't be if if I'd never met them.
I think they remind me why I came into health and social care or social work in the first place. I think they keep me grounded in terms of what are we trying to do and why are we trying to do it and what impact is it going to make.
I think being a Champions Board ambassador has definitely improved how I operate as a social worker and as a social work manager. I think it's opened my eyes and my heart probably in a way that I probably couldn't have predicted. And this is my way of connecting to people with lived experience. And it's a gift. It is an absolute gift. I mean, these young people are extraordinary. They just never fail to amaze me, and their enthusiasm and their banter and their laughs, and they are just a phenomenal group of young people, and they have absolutely changed me professionally and personally.
Many thanks to Mark, Alison, and Lindsay for speaking with my colleague Mhairi. I was really struck by how clearly the theme of holding people to account came through in that conversation, as well as the importance of closing that feedback loop, which came up in our discussion this morning as well. It was also just so lovely to see how much these corporate parents genuinely respect and care for the young people that they work with. And thank you so much, Katy and Nadia. I am just blown away by how much has already been covered in such a short amount of time. And speaking of time, it's now time for our Q&A panel session. So I'd like to invite the panel to turn their cameras on now and join me on screen. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Hi. I know we've met some of you already. So I'm going to ask the rest of you to introduce yourselves and just say a little bit about who you are and what you do and what your involvement in the project. So Mhairi, can I start with you?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Mhairi Reid. I work for Life Changes Trust. I'm the Evidence and Influencing Coordinator alongside Celeste.
Thank you, Mhairi, for being here. And then we've heard reference to the peer evaluators a couple of times, but we're lucky enough to have two of them with us here today. Shawn, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Shawn. I was one of the peer researchers who helped Nadia and Katy. I'm also a participation officer for the Southern Champs Board.
Thank you for being here, Shawn. And then last but certainly not least, Anisha, do you want to say hi?
Yeah, hi, I'm Anisha. I'm 19 now, so done the exact same job as Shawn, and I'm also one of the lead young people for Western Barnshire Champions Board.
Thank you so much for both taking the time and joining us this afternoon. And then we've also got Katy and Nadia back with us again as well. So to kick us off, I think, Mhairi, I'm going to have the first question goes to you, which is why did the trust take kind of this particular approach to the Champs Board evaluation? Why did we want young people involved throughout this evaluation?
I mean, I guess it's because that's what we're all about at the Trust, as you know, Celeste. You know, we like to walk the walk. We involve people from our own advisory group right at the start of the procurement process. So Katy and Nadia will remember being interviewed by some of them. And we really like to make sure that the people that we work with, like other evaluators, are supported and resourced to fully involve young people in the evaluations too. I guess, like, why do we do this then? It just makes things better, to be honest with you. The language that we use is different. People like Katy and Nadia approach the research differently. It also offers young people themselves an opportunity to pick up new skills. And that's what we are all about at the Trust too, you know, to give young people that opportunity to try something new, to be valued for the skills that they bring to something, and be properly remunerated and valued for that input that they have too. And look, ultimately, the evaluation outputs are also just better as well. You'll see from the 3 reports that the voice of young people just sings through every single report. And the young people summary in particular is designed to speak to their peers. It's designed to draw them into the research and to explore maybe the full reports as well. So just thanks to people like Shawn and Anisha for that and for the role that they've played in that. And I'm looking forward to hearing what it was like for them to be involved in that and kind of what the best things were.
Well, and I think that's exactly where we're going next, is that, you know, we're really kind of keen to hear from you guys, Shawn and Anisha, about What was it like being a peer researcher, sitting in on interviews, conducting interviews? How did that feel for you all?
It was really, really good to get involved. When I'd first heard about it, I kind of wanted to get better at interviewing from it. But actually getting to do it was great. Nadia let me and Anisha do a few of them ourselves and stuff. So we got to choose and set the tempo of how we done it, whatever way we wanted to do it. Got to ease into it. But it was great getting to speak to loads of different people and find out how all the other champions boards work. I've only ever seen the Stirling Champions Board, so it was really, really good to get to find out about some of the ones further up, Scotland, West Bartonshire, and just to hear some of the different things that they've done that we never got the chance to do.
The exact same as Shawn. It was good being just sitting there on the interview panel, but not as a care experienced young person, as whatever you call it, being on the panel. I wasn't seen as a young person, I was just seen as somebody else who was conducting the interview. Exactly what Shawn said, it was quite nice to do the interviews ourselves as well, and just hear what different people from different sort of authority have got to say, and what they do with their Champions Board. I really enjoyed it.
So was it what you expected? I mean, like sitting in on the interviews, was it kind of what you thought it was going to be? Was it different? How did it kind of meet what you thought you were going to be doing?
Yeah, it was, but it was interviewing. So I mean, it was what we expected, but some of the answers just like weren't. Yeah, I didn't expect to hear how every single person that we spoke to loved the Champs Boards. Every single one of them had amazing things to say about it. Even when talking about the challenges and stuff, there was a few that had said like, yeah, this was really, really hard work. It was great, but trying to actually do this was quite difficult. And it was good to hear about some of that stuff.
Yeah, just to hear the variety of things that other boards are doing, etc. Yeah, well, definitely what we expected, kind of.
And Katy and Nadia, what about you guys? What was your experience of working with the peer evaluators? You've touched on it a bit, but I was wondering if you wanted to kind of add a little bit more.
Yep. As Shawn and Anisha were saying, it was Nadia that worked most closely with the peer evaluators. So I'll let you see a wee bit in a minute, Nadia. But for me, I absolutely loved it. I loved doing the training, and it helped remind me of the basics of what we think about in research and what ethics and how we actually approach interviews. And some of the things were things that we maybe hadn't written down before. They're just things that we do naturally, and it made us really think about our practice. So that was brilliant for us. And I also loved that you encouraged us to go with some creative methods that maybe wouldn't have used otherwise. So like we did a lovely live illustration session where some of the peer evaluators came along and talked about their experiences, and there was an illustrator drawing that live, and there's some graphics in the report that we've used, which really helped to bring the report to life. So it really encouraged us, as Mhairi said, to make our research better and to make our reports and final outputs better and more readable and more engaging for lots of different audiences.
Thanks, Katy. I loved having peer researchers on this project. We had worked with peer researchers a little bit before, but never as much or as intensely as we had on this program. So it was really different for me as a researcher, and I'm used to kind of just going about my work and kind of doing it all on my own. So it was actually really nice, particularly when we're in this kind of pandemic situation where I wasn't going out and meeting people, to be partnering up for work like this. So from a purely selfish perspective, it was lovely to have a team to work with and to have people to share those interviews with, and to have them there to kind of bounce ideas off. So I hope you didn't mind that I was doing that with you, because we'd often take some time at the end of every interview to do a bit of kind of reflection. What did you think of that? How did that go? And that's definitely something that I would normally be doing in the office with my colleagues. If I come off a call, if I come back from a meeting, and I would kind of debrief a little bit. And it was really nice to be able to do that with you and to get your perspectives on all those things. And I've really loved watching you guys grow. So starting off, with interviews, doing it kind of in a context that you hadn't done before, and using a discussion guide that was kind of new to you, and watching you grow to then doing the whole interview on your own, and me just sitting back and not feeling like I needed to do anything. I never felt like I needed to step in or change something or probe a bit more, because you guys were doing that and doing it fantastically. And as Katy said, it just made us think a lot more about our research practice. So certainly for me, in those early stages when we were going through kind of how do we do an interview and what do we do here and what do we do there, it really made me think, why do we do that? For whose benefit is that? Which parts of this is for me? Which part of this is for the person I'm interviewing? And how do we make that a really good experience for everyone? And one thing that I hope you're able to pick up on is that the corporate parents that you interviewed loved the experience of being interviewed by you. It was good for them. And that's something that made me feel really proud, because certainly the way that we work at Research Scotland is that we want the experience of being part of an evaluation with us to be a positive one. And sometimes it can be really positive and really cathartic for people. And that definitely came through, that people enjoyed having that with you and to be able to talk to you about those things. And so I just loved being a bit of a bystander in watching all of this take place in front of me. So thank you again for everything. And yeah, definitely a positive experience for us all around.
Well, that's great to hear. We've got a few more questions coming in for Anisha and Shawn, actually. So we've got one person wondering, are the skills that you gained in this project, is this stuff that you think you're going to keep using in the future?
Definitely. Some of the times I've used the skills were the children's hearing system. Sometimes when they're doing recruiting, they involve us in the same kind of way as Nadia and Katy did. As it turned out, I had done that prior to doing the work with Nadia and stuff this time. So but I'll be able to use these skills for next year if I go and help out again. Sometimes we get asked to be involved in interviews. I don't know about Anisha, but for the council, if there's new people coming into place, like we had somebody in the promise position for Stirling Council, we were involved in those interviews, so they'll be transferable to situations like that.
Exact same as Shawn. We also interview people to be on panels for children's hearings. We're actually doing that again this year, which I've already volunteered for and said, do you know what, I loved it. I'm that comfortable interviewing now that it's also like when somebody is sitting on the other side of the interview, it's funny because you know what they're feeling, because obviously I've been for interviews as a young person for jobs or whatever it is, and just knowing that kind of pressure and stuff, but me just being a young person as well. We also interview social workers or who are applying to be social workers for the council. So yeah, I mean, skills I'll probably use for like maybe the rest of my life, but yeah, definitely transferable.
Yeah, that's interesting what you said, Anisha, about the kind of knowing what it feels like to be on the other side of the table, and how that does feel different when you're when you're being interviewed. It feels different when you've been on the other side, and you can you kind of know what their process is. So it sort of shifts things, doesn't it? That's really cool. So sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, just even like when me being a young person and them like having all the knowledge and, for example, applying to be a social worker for the council, they're the ones that have got all the qualifications, etc. I'm just that young person going through that sort of like mini stage with them, and you can just see they're wanting to get everything out and they're under pressure as well. And I'm like, I'm just a young person, but I'm not just a young person. I'm interviewing them for a job. So yeah.
Yeah, nothing just about your role. Nothing just a young person there.
Yeah,
that's so great. So do opening it up to everybody. Was there kind of a favorite part? Did you have a favorite thing that you got involved in with this project? This is another kind of question that's come in. What was your favorite part?
I'm happy to go first for this, because although I wasn't part of the research team, the whole thing's been my favourite part, actually, working with everybody. But just seeing the reports is what it's all about. It's been such a big investment and a long journey for the Trust, and also for all the Champions Boards. And to have people like Anisha and Shawn part of the research, to have Katy and Nadia feeling like this has been a journey for them too is just great. It's not a bunch of reports that will sit on a shelf. They'll be used, and they'll speak to people, and that makes us feel really proud at the Trust.
Maybe
for my favourite part, it would have to have been when we got the artist in to kind of draw a conversation when we were discussing what the Champions Boards mean to us. It was weird, but it was really entertaining to see her draw it while we were talking. It was good fun to watch.
I really loved that as well, Shawn. The drawings that came out of it were brilliant, and your discussion was what informed those drawings, so it was really powerful. I was just going to say, I think for me, my favourite part, I absolutely loved working with the peer evaluators and loved doing the interviews, but what I loved was when the report came together and I could see all the passion from everybody. We interviewed so many people who were so passionate and so committed to the approach. And then we could see from the report findings that there had actually been a massive impact, a huge impact on young people, a huge impact on policy and practice. And the discussions about how Champions Boards have actually changed how people think and feel and the way they go about their jobs on an everyday basis were so powerful. So I was so pleased when that came together that we could see that was across the board and so many people were talking about that. Was probably my favourite part.
I think my favourite part is probably what we're doing today, because I loved all parts of it, and I really love conducting the interviews. But normally what happens is someone will give me a really good nugget from there, and I'll know that it's going down in the notes. But I'll be like, oh my gosh, Anne, Katy, do you know that these people are doing this thing? Do you know that those people are doing that thing? And I really love getting to share the findings with people. So I think for all of it today is really important to me to be able to share all of that stuff with people and to know that the information is out there for people to be able to see and use. And like what you said there, Mhairi, that they're not going to be reports that sit on a shelf. They will be used by people. And that is so important. I'm really, really happy to hear that.
My favourite bit, probably the whole thing. I mean, just creating that bond with Nadia and Katy and taking their knowledge to then use ourselves, and just the whole process, meeting people and seeing their passion for their Champions Board, and that creative bit where somebody came in and drew how we felt about the Champions Boards. That was really, really cool. Like just on paper, like it was just pictures basically, and you know what they say, what's that, a picture says 1,000 words or whatever. That was literally it. So yeah, the whole process, and even today being able to tell and show people what we've been up to, so pretty cool.
Very cool. And Anisha, you got a little shout out in the chat there from Judy Wilson saying that how delighted that she is that you volunteered for the recruitment team because you bring a wealth of skills and made a huge impact last year. That's pretty cool. And the drawings, so you guys, a lot of you both, like I think 3 or 4 of you mentioned the kind of the illustration, and those are the drawings in the report, right? Like those are taken directly from that illustrated conversation, and that became like the kind of graphics within the report, which I just think is so cool. It really brings that kind of conversation, that voice to the forefront in a way that you don't really see very often in like evaluation reports. So yeah, that's really, really, really cool.
And that's
sorry, go ahead, Katy.
Sorry, Celeste, that came directly from the peer evaluators. So we asked peer evaluators, how do you think would be the best way to show young people's experiences? And we looked at all sorts of different case studies and ways of presenting things. And people said, oh, let's try this. That looks brilliant. So it was absolutely peer evaluators' ideas and their voices. And I think it makes the report look really special.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. So I guess kind of thinking about the report overall, what did anything kind of, you talked about your favorite part, but did any particular thing make a really big impression on you in terms of either the process or the findings of what you learned in the report? Did something make a particularly strong impression on you?
I think I'll go first. So just during the process, we were being interviewed. Well, no, we were interviewing with Nadia, and I think one of the like obviously we were there as interviewers, but somebody had popped a question to like ask me about my experience of being care experienced, and like Nadia kind of just like shut that down right away and kind of said like Anisha's here as an interviewer, she's not here as like a young person, and just like to leave that for another time, etc. That kind of stood out to me because I was like, wow, like that's something I wouldn't have thought of. I would have just went ahead with my spiel and spoke to them about it, but I just felt all professional and safe is the word.
For me, it was just how equal it felt. So Nadia did just treat us like we were peer evaluators, like Anisha had said, and something so simple but made the full process so much more comfortable for everybody, because I really did just feel like I was part of the team and we just worked together. And so yeah, that was probably the part that stuck out to me the most.
I guess I'll come in off the back of that, because there's a big message here, isn't there? You know, that the findings coming through about what matters in champions boards is actually the same as what has mattered here as part of this evaluation. The way that Nadia and Katy and Shawn and Anisha have built relationships with each other, the way that they feel safe and valued, the stuff that they've all taken from it, that when you put in the same ingredients, you come out with the same kind of great cake, I suppose. So to use an analogy that one of our advisory group always uses, you need all those ingredients in there to be in place, and you know, the product's usually great at the end of it. So yeah, I think that's been a great thing to watch.
I think for me, if there was one thing that really struck me, it was about how honest people were with us throughout the evaluation. We always ask people to be honest, and we can always say, you know, we're not going to use anyone's kind of name or identifying information. But I was really struck by the kind of depth of the answers people gave us about the things that they found really hard and really challenging. And often when we're doing like an impact evaluation, people just want to talk about everything that was wonderful, and they're really reticent to share anything that was difficult, and they don't want anything that might, you know, make their area look negative or look like it wasn't doing as well. But for this, I feel that people were very, very honest. And I think that came partly from our approach, but also from the approach from the Life Changes Trust, that, you know, you were really focused on learning, and that there was going to be an evaluation report. People knew what was coming, and they seemed to understand what it was going to be for, and that they could be honest without fear of any kind of repercussions for them or their champions board or their area. And that's really, really refreshing, because as a researcher, you ask these questions openly and you just want an honest answer. We're not there to kind of to judge people or to make them feel good or bad about their achievements or their challenges. So that to me was a really, really nice part of this. That was so much to say, both on what people had achieved, but also on where they felt they could be doing better or could be doing differently.
Yeah, I agree, Nadia. I mean, I think so many of the people we interviewed were absolutely brilliant interviewees. You had so much to say, and so much to say about the really hard things as well. So outcomes and impact, people often find really hard to talk about, but you were really able to articulate that. And as Nadia says, just being honest about the challenges. I think for me, one of the most interesting things was how a champions board feels. We asked people that question. We asked everybody that, young people, corporate parents, staff. And some people don't really like questions about feelings, but this group of people that we were interviewing were all able to really articulate, this is how it feels, and lots of positivity, lots of fun, and also, as Nadia says, lots of honesty about, this is challenging, this is a wee bit uncomfortable, but that's okay, we're working through it and we're getting there. So I think that's what was kind of most interesting and special for me.
Oh, I wish we could stay and keep chatting, but I'm just realizing that we have run out of time. So I'm just going to say thank you all, the panel, for joining us and for sharing your insights and your thoughts. We really, really appreciate you taking the time. So I'm going to let you go now so you can go and relax and have a cup of tea and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Thanks for coming. And we're now at the end of today's webinar. We've heard from young people, we've heard from peer researchers, we've heard from corporate parents, and I'm just so grateful. I mean, kind of echoing what Katy and Nadia were just talking about, I'm so grateful for the openness and the honesty that people brought to this evaluation around not only the successes, but the challenges facing champs boards. So we as a community can continue to work together to find solutions. It's been such an honor to be involved with champs boards and to chair this event. They've been at the heart of so much of our work here at the Trust, and I hope Our events from today and the evaluation reports have done them justice. I've been involved with the Champions Board project since the summer of 2016, and I am just still so in awe of the work that they do. We've been blown away over and over again by all of the Champs boards, and in particular, the young people involved, by their commitment, their energy, their enthusiasm, and their investment, not only in their own futures, but the futures of those who come after them. We're so, so grateful for you all. I would like to say a huge thank you to everyone who took part today, giving your time to make this event possible. We hope everyone has enjoyed it and will take away some of the learning. We'll email everyone with the link of the recording to this webinar in a few days. The evaluation report will also be on that same webpage, and you'll find it in our social media accounts. So, and finally, thank you to all of you for coming, for supporting today's webinar, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks. Bye.